Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Feed Me Pixels review and recommendation series. I'm your host, Larry the Chupacabra, and today we're going to be taking a look at a $10 title named Into the Void by Mog's Studio that takes us through a strategic-based interstellar adventure where we have to defend our base, gather resources, destroy other rivaling factions, and try to solve an ancient mystery almost as old as humanity itself. The gameplay then for Into the Void is split into three primary categories, and each one of these different sections has its own unique component that you have to keep an eye on in order to be successful and not get blown up inside of this vast chunk of the Milky Way galaxy. So you've got the primary bread and butter of the game is space travel and also space combat, and the combat of Into the Void is a lot of take turns fleet combat where you switch off between individual ships, either defending yourself or doing precision strikes on different components of the enemy ships in order to fight them off, in order to claim planetary resources, or to just defend yourself from marauding intergalactic pirates, because I mean, I don't know about you, but I prefer if pirates don't try to come steal my booty, or maybe touch my booty or blow it up across the Milky Way galaxy. And then the next component that goes along with that is you have to be concerned about the intricacies of intergalactic spaceflight. I mean, you'd think in the future you could just download an app like the iSpaceship app and just tell it to take you somewhere, and the crazy space robots would take care of the vast majority of the work for you, but you've got to be concerned with distance, speed, your fuel levels, and also something that I didn't really take into account initially was, well, when your crew is not happy, well, your ship doesn't go anywhere. They just sort of start to get really depressed and they stop doing their jobs, and all of a sudden there's just overflowing toilets all over the ship, and someone steers you into a black hole. It can just be a big crazy mess, and there's a whole lot of intricate components involved in simply traveling across the galaxy, let alone blowing the other factions in said galaxy into little beschnibbly bits. And then the last component is something that you might even expect from more of a mobile game, where you have a base management sim inside of the game where you have to maintain your pool of resources, both collected from murdering other people in space and also gathered from captured bases on planets, in order to maintain your fleet, upgrade your fleet via resources, and also sort of build out a miniature galactic empire from which you will solve a grand mystery or try to stop some sort of odd miasmic plague. It depends on how you like to roll the deck and play your cards right. And really, there's a whole lot of stuff going on to Into the Void, and this is a game that you would really enjoy if you like to min-max a lot of different components in order to achieve the broader goal of sort of being the dominating political force in the universe while you try to stop the onslaught of this mysterious force coming to murder everybody. But the primary downside to all of this is the game has a really, really steep learning curve. They just throw information at you, and you really just got to try and think on your feet, read as many little details inside the interface as possible, or else you'll end up like your pal Larry here, and, well, I had to start over not once but twice in order to get my bearings and try to get somewhere inside of the game. While it's not too hard to maintain combat because it can actually fight for you, the whole thing can just really be overwhelming and not really give you a lot of options in order to get more information other than trial and error. The story then for Into the Void is one that's one part murder mystery and one part just strange, bizarre, intergalactic, desperate attempt to save humanity. So at some point early on in humanity's history of space exploration and pioneering out into the depths of space, this bizarre and strange miasma of like this cloud just enveloped our solar system and slowly began to consume and destroy all of human civilization, chasing our species into the far reaches of the known galaxy, And that's where our faction jumps into the storyline. We have dedicated our lives in order to try and suss out what is causing this miasma and stop it, either by helping other factions to smuggle in human test subjects to analyze what the miasma is doing, or simply to explore other planets and observe what the miasma has done to people. And it's a certain amount of suspicious alien intrigue, like something's controlling this, that's right out of the Star Trek playbook. However, I just didn't find the story too compelling or too immersive to really make you want to go to that next story mission. It was just a lot more interesting to wander around the galaxy, encountering little side missions, including one that involves the rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail that you have to use the holy quantum torpedo of Antioch in order to kill and save your foot soldiers on the ground before it kills all of them. So it's a decent story, but most of what this game is offering you is a lot of min-maxing gameplay and wandering around the cosmos. One of the things that Into the Void does pretty well, but sorta hinky at the same time, is the graphics. There's a lot of really well-modeled graphics inside of the game, both space stations and spaceships and planets and interstellar bodies and objects, that is really interesting to look at, especially when you get some up-close looks inside of the various interfaces running around the game in various places. But the place where it sort of falls short is you don't really get the best opportunity to enjoy this. You have a lot of space battles that you can set on autopilot, and the autopilot tends to be the best way to go in a lot of situations, but the camera zooms so far out that you just can't appreciate the fine level of detail and the reflections from the game engine, so you're just kind of left with sort of like a subpar space battle that seems like it's meant more for ants than it is for the eyes of humans. So all the various graphics are great, they have lots of detail. I just wish that they had more of a cinematic approach with their various camera angles so that you could really appreciate it. And then last but not least, we've got the audio for Into the Void, and Into the Void has some audio which is on par with what I would expect from a min-maxing type strategy game that has a lot of different components that can quickly become a little overwhelming if you try to keep track with just your ocular orbits. So every weapon, every engine, every sort of ability or device inside of the game has its own individual sounds, so that lasers sound different than missiles, missiles sound different than plasma bolts, and plasma bolts sound different than a gigantic intergalactic space explosion, which is about to tear all of our insides out into a small singularity compressed to the size of a pea. So they do a nice job with that, and you know, one of the things I just enjoyed so very much was just wandering the galaxy, just not paying attention too closely, and just enjoying the sort of abstract sci-fi melody that plays in the background as you just sort of wibble-wobble through the galaxy. So the verdict then for Into the Void is that it's a really good game if you're an individual that really likes a strategy game with a lot of different really involved components that requires you to min-max all of the different elements of your ship, from the weapons to the speed to the engines to the generator to the shields, and use that as a methodology to bully your way across the galaxy, trying desperately to solve an ancient mystery that may spell the end of mankind if you don't find some way to solve it. Now, where the game tends to fall short for me is that it just doesn't have a lot of the refined pieces that I need to really feel immersed in it. It's really hard to figure out what you gotta do in the game, a lot of the information you are given is somewhat confusing, and the interface can be really janky and also very confusing in and of itself in order just to try and fly across the first solar system that you encounter, let alone the entire galaxy, and the difficulty level just randomly spikes. You go from obliterating ships with a really fancy fleet, and the next thing you know, you fly against a fleet that's 10 times bigger than you and you just get obliterated. So for your average player, I'm gonna say this isn't the game for you. Probably stay away from it because it's got a really steep learning curve and you're gonna find more frustration out of this game than enjoyment, and especially not nearly as much of the immersion that you would expect from this type of storyline. So that's it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I've been your host today, Larry the Chupacabra. You can find links to this game in the video description. Check it out and see if it's something that you might be interested in. And if you want to see more of the stuff from me, you can check out my channel's link in the description below. I do things like Let's Plays, my own game reviews, first looks, and I'm going to start doing some interviews soon. So until next time, be sure to subscribe to Feed Me Pixels, check out the website for news and reviews related to the gaming's world, and also check out the Feed Me Pixels live channel on twitch.tv in order to catch all of our wonderful, funny, and hilarious hijinks. Toodles, everybody!